At the same time, within the dense and shadowy forest of death, nestled in the crater of an extinct volcano, a lone knight walked with a serious expression on his face. This knight eventually arrived in a dimly lit chamber where a black mage was deeply engrossed in his work. The knight approached, his tone tense as he asked, "How far along are you?" Startled, but quickly recognized the knight. "I've finished the basic framework," he replied, calming himself. "Now I just need to melt the essence of the sacrifices and let it absorb into the frame to complete it." Turning his gaze towards the knight, he asked, "The team from the 5th village, have they returned with the sacrifices yet?" The knight, named Dares Kleiman, replied, "They haven't returned yet, but they'll be here soon. Don't worry." The black mage grinned darkly. "Good. That's excellent. Once they're back with the hostages, I'll be able to complete this." In his hands, he held a partially formed red jewel, ominous and pulsing with a faint glow. He continued, "Once this jewel is finished, your lord will be one step closer to his goal." Dares nodded solemnly. "Of course he will. Otherwise, why would we be doing all this?" Dares Kleiman was a loyal subordinate of Sylvetta, and in his mind, he pledged silently, "Lord, please wait just a little longer. I will make sure you become the Archduke of the Sire's Grand Duchy." Elsewhere, back in the forest, Aiden stood still, sweat trickling down his face as a disturbing thought crossed his mind. Did the Dark Mage really take over the hidden village of the Ents inside this volcano crater? Underlord whispered to him. "Surprising, isn't it? Who'd have guessed the mastermind behind all this was that Night King again?" Aiden remembered a conversation with an Ent who had told him, "The one who locked us up? I think his name was Clemming or Clade, something like that." Aiden's eyes widened as he spoke the name in realization. "Don't tell me. It was Dares Kleiman?" Hearing this, the Ent had shouted, "Yes, that's right. That man and the Dark Mages attacked our village, cut down our guardian tree, and locked us up." Back in the present, Aiden's mind raced, piecing it all together. Dares Kleiman, one of the infamous 3 Hounds of Sylvetta, known as the Dark Knight, had joined forces with the Crimson Knight and the Dark Mages. To verify if it was truly the Dark Knight, as the Ent had suggested, Aiden planned to quietly bring the Ent along for reconnaissance. But his patience was running thin. This stubborn Ent had insisted on tagging along, claiming it was his territory and his responsibility. Annoyed, Aiden gritted his teeth, muttering to himself, "This tactless rascal." And to make things worse, why on earth did Lena have to come along too? Just then, a group of large spiders emerged, ready to attack. Seeing them, Lena's eyes lit up in excitement. "So we have spiders here too," she said, taking them out with a single blow. The Ent, terrified, ducked behind Aiden. Watching this scene, Aiden rolled his eyes, thinking she must have tagged along because she was bored. Turning to Tyan, who stood beside him, Aiden asked, "You said Priestess Lena took care of all the Dark Mages and bandits, right?" Tyan, sweating slightly, nodded. "Yes, that's right. She's incredible." Aiden furrowed his brows, thinking this feels off somehow. "Doesn't it seem strange to you too?" Underlord replied dryly, "You don't have to think so hard to see that it's clearly strange. Who wouldn't find someone as crazy as her strange?" At that moment, Lena sent 2 of the spiders flying into the air with one powerful hit. Aiden watched, half impressed and half disturbed, thinking aloud, "The priestess is way too obedient. She actually listens to what we say." Underlord coughed, questioning, "Are you in your right mind? Where exactly do you see her obedience?" Lena, now finished with the spiders, stood with purple blood splattered across her face, smiling with exhilaration. Aiden turned to Underlord, explaining, "You don't understand. Priests from the Divine Carnage cult are lunatics who live for senseless violence. And on top of that, she's far too powerful to be an average priestess." From where he stood, Aiden observed Lena from behind. Not only had she single-handedly handled all the Dark Mages and bandits who destroyed the 4 villages, but she had also effortlessly taken down monsters infused with demonic energy. Around her lay the mangled bodies of the spider monsters, evidence of her unmatched strength. Aiden, even more shocked, turned to Underlord. At her level, she must be a high-ranking priest. Or no, even beyond that, he murmured, feeling increasingly uneasy. Recalling his colleague who had betrayed him, he thought Priestess Lena, she should already be known, like the iron-blooded saintess. Aiden made a mental note to keep a close eye on her. Meanwhile, Lena wiped monster fluid from her mouth with her hand, turning back to the group. "Let's keep moving forward," she said calmly. Finally, they reached the cliff overlooking the crater where the Ent village lay within the extinct volcano. They stood on the high ground, gazing down at the scene below. The Ent's expression darkened as he looked at his village, anger and trembling overtaking him. Aiden glanced at him. "Is that your village?" The Ent gritted his teeth. Yes, there was supposed to be a fairy tree in the center, but his voice cracked as he looked at the tree's remaining stump. Aiden realized the fairy tree was the source of the Ent's power. Cutting it down must have nullified their strength. He thought further. In dark magic, fairies are even more valuable as sacrifices than humans. What is Chaos planning with all those humans and Ents? Suddenly, Aiden froze, his gaze locking onto a figure stepping out of a nearby building. It was Dares Kleiman. I was worried the Ent might be wrong, he thought, but thank God. "Nice to see you, you damn Dark Knight." Tyan noticed Dares too, and his face twisted with anger as he reached for his sword. "So he's the mastermind behind all this, right? I'm going to kill him," he growled. Aiden quickly placed a hand on Tyan's arm. "Wait," he urged. Tyan glared at him, his eyes turning red as he gritted his teeth. "Why? He attacked my territory and took my people as sacrifices. And you want me to just let that slide? He doesn't even look that strong. With Priestess Lena's help, we can take him down easily." Aiden, his expression serious, replied, "Calm down and look around." They scanned the village, realizing that numerous dark mages were stationed throughout the area. Aiden continued, "Dares isn't alone. There are too many dark mages with him. The three of us can't take them on right now." Aiden glanced down at the village below, then turned to Tyan. "Besides, that Dark Knight isn't just any opponent, so let's hold off for now." As he observed Dares, his mind raced. "I know all too well that he's as skilled as Sylvetta, maybe even on the level of a semi-master by now. He's incredibly skilled. Just by his abilities, he's leagues above any knight I've faced so far in this life. Even with the three of us, there's no guarantee we'd win. And if the villagers get involved, we'll suffer heavy losses." Aiden felt a chill as he considered the risks, a drop of sweat trickling down his face. There's got to be a better way to handle this. Just then, Underlord appeared at the cliff's edge, his arms crossed, scanning the scene intently. Aiden raised an eyebrow and called out, "Hey, what are you doing over there?" Underlord didn't turn, his voice serious. "I've sensed an unsettling presence since we entered this forest. Now I know what it is." Aiden scoffed, smirking. "The only unsettling thing I see right now is your rear. Get it out of my face." Underlord's eyes flared as he snapped, "I'm trying to help you. How dare you insult my backside?" Rolling his tongue around his lips, Underlord continued, "A human like you can't sense it, but my refined senses can pick it up instantly." Aiden, visibly annoyed, mockingly replied, "Impressive. So, what did you find out?" Underlord bristled, gritting his teeth. "Don't be shocked when you hear it. Beneath those trees." Aiden's eyes widened, his hands instinctively clenching, veins showing on his wrists. "I see. There have been oddities here, but this explains everything." Suddenly, a thought struck Aiden. "If I can use whatever's under those trees." With a new sense of determination, he said aloud, "I've thought of a way." Tyan's eyes widened with hope. "You mean there's a way out of this?" Everyone turned to look at Aiden, curiosity evident on their faces. Aiden glanced at the Ent. "You said you know where everything in this forest is, right?" The Ent, still intrigued, replied, "Yeah. What about it?" Aiden turned to Tyan, his eyes sharp. "Are you willing to do anything for your people?" Tyan's face hardened, his teeth clenched. "Of course I am," he spat out, his voice fierce. "For my people, I'd fight to the death." Aiden's lips curled into a wild smile. "Really? There's no taking that back, you know." His tone made Tyan falter, a flicker of unease passing over his face as beads of sweat formed on his brow. Turning to Priestess Lena, Aiden said, "Since you're here, would you mind joining in?" It's a fun game. Lena chuckled, a glint of excitement in her eyes. All right, she replied, her voice laced with eagerness. Moments later, on the left side of the crater, the ground shook violently, as though an earthquake had hit. A loud commotion filled the air as Tyan tore through the forest, sprinting at full speed. Behind him, a swarm of massive spider monsters followed, closing in on him. Aiden Remez, you damn bastard! Tyan yelled, glancing over his shoulder with terror. Are you trying to get me killed? On the right side of the crater, a group of ogres bolted away in panic. Their leader shouted frantically, "Run faster!" Behind them, Lena chased with a maniacal laugh, calling out, "This is the best game of tag I've ever played." She launched herself into the air, shouting at the ogres below, "Don't let me catch you, or you're dead." The ogres, terrified, picked up speed, trying desperately to escape her. Watching the chaos unfold, the Ent looked over at Aiden, bewildered. "Are you trying to start a monster wave to scare off the dark mages?" Aiden, his arms crossed as he watched the scene, smirked. "You're half right," he replied coolly. "I'm using these monsters to wake up a real beast, one that'll fight for us. After all, that snake down there must be starving after hundreds of years without a meal." As if on cue, a massive form stirred beneath the trees. Ancient scales shifted as the giant snake slowly opened its eyes, blinking for the first time in centuries. Aiden turned to look at the Ent and noticed him trembling. A small smirk crossed Aiden's face as he asked, "Are you scared?" The Ent, still shaking, quickly replied, "No, I'm not," though sweat trickled down his face. "I just feel angry and ashamed. If we were as strong as you, they wouldn't dare to harm us." Aiden slowly unsheathed his sword, an ominous red energy radiating from the blade. "Don't worry," he said, his voice low and steady. "They'll pay for everything you've been through. They owe me something too." Aiden grinned and glanced back at the Ent. "By the way, I don't think I ever caught your name. What should I call you?" With a determined expression, the Ent replied, "Izzy." "My name is Easy." The red and black aura around Aiden intensified as he gripped his sword. "All right, Easy." He looked at him with a sharp glint in his eye and asked, "Remember what I said back in the 5th village? When I asked you what you'd give me for putting myself in danger to help you?" Easy froze, startled at the reminder, then clenched his fists, saying, "If you manage to save our village." He took a deep breath and continued, shouting, "I swear on my spirit name, I'll give you as many of my tears as you want. I've heard they're valuable to humans." Aiden grinned, nodding. "Deal. Consider it done. But from now on, worry about yourself more than your family." Ez's eyes widened in shock, sweat forming on his forehead as he stammered, "Well, what did you just say?" At that moment, Beelzebub's voice echoed through the air. "Power of domination. Answer the call of our master." Aiden addressed the sword. Beelzebub summoned the ghost Mephisto. Suddenly, a ghostly figure materialized before Aiden, bowing his head. "You have called me my lord," Mephisto said. Aiden's eyes narrowed slightly as he considered his summon, thinking to himself, "I still haven't perfected this summoning, but it should do for now." Clearing his mind, Aiden looked at Mephisto and issued his command. "You'll find a group of venomous lizards in the lower part of the forest. I want you to drive them toward the crater at the heart of this extinct volcano." Mephisto placed a hand over his chest, bowing deeply. "I have your order, my lord," he replied with unwavering sincerity. Mephisto soared off toward the venomous lizards without hesitation. Watching him disappear, Aiden grinned in satisfaction, thinking to himself, "How convenient it is to have a high-ranking Talos like Mephisto obeying my every command." He clenched his fist with determination. "But I need to get stronger soon, so I can unlock Mephisto's full potential." Aiden turned back to Easy. "All right, we should get moving too," he said. Easy, caught off guard, stammered, "Where are we going?" Aiden chuckled, a glint of anticipation in his eyes. "What do you mean, where? I made a promise, didn't I? We're going to save your village and your family. Let's go." The scene shifted to the crater of the extinct volcano, where Dares Kleiman stood with his arms crossed, his expression dark and serious. Beads of sweat dotted his face as he thought, Why haven't I heard anything from the 5th village crew yet? Could they have been taken out? No, impossible. There's no one here capable of that. Just then, Dares noticed ripples in a still pool of water nearby. His eyes narrowed, suspicion rising. Waves in still water? He glanced around and noticed a strange movement in the trees, which seemed to be swaying slightly, as if disturbed by something moving quickly beneath them. His hand instinctively moved to the hilt of his sword, ready to draw. In the distance, he caught sight of someone running straight toward him. "What's this?" he muttered. "A band of thieves?" But as the figure drew closer, and behind him, a swarm of monstrous creatures, including spider monsters with venomous fangs gleaming in the dim light. Dares scowled, shouting to his men, "Monsters! Defend the lab immediately!" Tyan, sprinting as fast as he could with a mix of terror and determination, shouted at the top of his lungs, "Aiden Remez, I'll kill you for this." Dares glared at the wave of spiders approaching, his jaw clenched. They may be coming in large numbers, but we can handle them. His thoughts were interrupted as he saw yet another wave of creatures emerge from the opposite side. A horde of poison ogres charging with ferocity, with Priestess Lena grinning maniacally behind them. Dare's face went pale. Poison ogres? What in the world are they doing here? He quickly scanned his surroundings, realizing the creatures had moved from the forest depths toward the volcano's crater. And now what? From yet another direction, a group of lizard monsters came charging forward, herded by Mephisto, who grinned wickedly and taunted them. "I'll tear you apart when I catch you." The creatures advanced toward the crater, creating a monstrous convergence around the dark mage's base. Aiden crouched behind one of the hideouts, observing the dark mages and knights scrambling to stop the oncoming monster wave. Nearby, a knight barked orders. "Hey, focus on stopping that monster wave too." Aiden turned to EZ, who looked terrified but determined, and nodded. "Let's go in, EZ." They slipped inside a room where Ez's tribe members were being held. Ez's face lit up with relief as he saw his people. "EZ, are you all right?" One asked, dropping to his knees in front of him. Another added, "Did you come here to save us?" Ez's voice softened with a proud smile. "Didn't I say I would?" But as he looked around, his smile faded. "Why are you the only ones here? Where are the others?" One of the ants, eyes heavy with sorrow, whispered, "We're all that's left, EZ. They took the others as sacrifices." Ez's face fell, and he clenched his fists, whispering, "I was too late." Aiden put a reassuring hand on Ez's shoulder. "This isn't your fault, EZ. It just shows how vile these people are." He then asked EZ to step back, unsheathing his sword. "Everyone, please step back from the bars." In two powerful swings, Aiden shattered the iron bars imprisoning the ants, who stared in awe. Aiden sheathed his sword and addressed them. "I know you must be confused, but I need to know one thing." He paused, then asked, "Do you know where they took the others?" As the words left his lips, he thought to himself, "If I can find where they're keeping them, I might finally figure out what their plan is." Outside, the battle raged as Dares and his squad fought fiercely. Dares cut down monsters with precision and force, while the dark mages used their dark magic to hold back the tide of beasts. The ground became soaked with the monster's purple blood, and its thick, pungent scent filled the air, slowly seeping toward the ancient snake lying dormant underground. Stirred by the scent, the massive serpent's eyes flickered open, its hunger awakened after centuries of slumber. It whispered in a low, rumbling voice, "Hungry." In an instant, the basilisk began slithering up through the earth, a powerful, ancient force propelling it closer to the surface. The tremors from its movement caused the ground to shake, and Dares, in the heat of the battle, whipped his head around, shouting, "Now what is it this time?" Water trembled like a quake was brewing, and even Aiden, still in the hideout, felt the tremors. A satisfied grin crossed his face as he whispered, "Finally, it's awake." The king of vipers, Basilisk. With a mighty roar, the basilisk burst from the water, its monstrous form towering above the battlefield. Every soldier and mage halted, staring in horror at the creature, and Dare's eyes widened in shock. He muttered, "What the?" as sweat dripped down his face. "That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this recap. If you'd like to see more manhwa recaps like this, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. That way, you'll stay updated on all my future content. Until next time, take care.